Thank you so much, Leopoldo. I really appreciate the opportunity to read. I attended last week and just really enjoyed Priscilla's reading and the other, his name's escaping me right now, the other feature, as well as all the community micers. It was just a really great night of poetry, one that I was more than happy to stay up late since I am on the East Coast and had to work the next day. But that was, it just was, like you said, like just a great community of poetry, and at a time when we can all gather together, but yet we're getting to meet other people from other parts of the country that we wouldn't necessarily get to meet at our local open mics, right? So it just is really exciting for me to be able to be here with you all. I am going to read a couple of poems from each of my books and then a couple of newer poems as well. And the first one is from my first chapbook called I Know When to Keep Quiet, and it's called Ashes. My father was a volcano spewing lava that night. Tables became timber, curtains fell, walls crumbled. My mother was a hummingbird darting between him and us, wings humming false promises that evaporated in the heat. Double bed like we had shared our mother's womb, a tangle of legs and arms, her thumping heart close to mine. A sliver of light sliced our room as mother appeared, then disappeared again. I folded my arms and blinked like I dream of Jeannie. Nothing. In the morning, we tiptoed over rocky landscape, washed our hands in ashes. We waited. Thank you. That is a poem that I used to read all the time. It's one of my favorite poems about my early childhood, which was a little dysfunctional and then got much better afterwards, but it just has a special place in my heart. So I decided that I wanted to read it again tonight. And definitely Joe and Janice and Noreen here, they are family to me. So they know that poem very well. As will they know, the next one I'm reading is called Kith. My mom comes from a large extended family, and we used to always have large family gatherings when I was growing up in New Jersey. My family's from New Jersey, and this is about one of those nights. It's called Kith. The party always began in the backyard, coolers filled with ice, beer, and soda, burgers spitting into lighter fluid and charcoal. A circle of lawn chairs with frayed webbing held ants in bell-bottoms and halter tops. Their gossip only interrupted to yell at children running with sparklers in hand. Inside the Victorian, grandfather sat for hours at an old upright against the back wall of dining room. A line of Budweiser cans sweated circles into the wood's grain. Playing by ear, he ran through his song list, always ending with Danny Boy or When Irish Eyes Are Smiling. Just as the marathon game of Jeopardy fired up around the mahogany table, siblings and spouses divided into teams with colored clickers in one hand, Coors Light and Camels in the other. As the game entered its third hour, arguments rose over potent potables, who forgot to shout answers as questions. The kids, a patchwork den carpet, using each other as pillows, the youngest in charge of cranking the volume on the console to make Gilda Radner's laugh win over dining room noise. Cigarette smoke coiled, hung above the kids before escaping through open windows, dissolving into the dark backyard, while mosquitoes skittered against dusty screens. Always a frenetic dance toward unreachable light. And that one, I guess it's good. I forgot it was St. Patrick's Day already, and I guess that was a good one to read because my grandfather was Irish and very proud of it. So I have 2 adult sons, and I often write about them, much to their dismay sometimes. And I wrote, Take Something When You Go is a lot about empty nest and kids growing up and how relationships change in that. And this was written when my older son was a junior in college, and he went and studied abroad for a semester. And he was in Shanghai. So the time difference was 12 hours. And it was just always interesting to envision where he was during the day and where we were. And so this is about that. It's called East West. I am waking up with first day jitters while you are winding down, off balance with jet lag, street signs you can't yet read outside the window. I am waking up to lesson plans and missed homework assignments while you are winding down, practicing character strokes, eating fried rice bought at a street vendor just beyond the back gate of campus. I am waking up to sunrise memories of the day you were born while you are winding down from a day of climbing dunes, riding a camel, making bread with Tibetan monks. I am waking up to snow in October while you are winding down at an expat jazz club, mocking those drinking pumpkin beer like they are on the western side of the world. I am waking up to the idea that you are not a baby, a boy, or a teenager, and now you are winding down, writing final papers and packing your bags to fly south, north, east, and finally west again. And the next couple that I'm going to read are from my newest collection called A Person Worth Knowing. And I was just so excited when Foothills Publishing decided to pick up this collection. It's one that I've been working on for several years. And it started with one day driving to work, and I drove by this woman and she was leaning against a fire hydrant and she just had the saddest look on her face. And I was drawn to just pull over and ask her like who she was and was she okay? And it was on a busy road and I couldn't. And then several more times I drove by her and kept thinking the same thing. So I started writing poems about people that I encountered, mostly that I didn't know. And just kind of, they become character sketches. If we all did take time to stop and talk to people, the really cool things that we would find out about them and about just humans in general. And then I added to the collection, there are definitely people in here that I know as well. And this first one is called How to Live Paycheck to Paycheck. Always wear hot pink scrubs on Mondays, holidays, and for monthly staff meetings. Remain calm when your coworker calls off with a full waiting room at 7:05 a.m. Cradle the phone on your shoulder as you place ID stickers on vials and tell your daughter she can't wear shorts to school in December on a day forecasted for snow. Sing Peter Gabriel's Red Rain while inputting diagnostic codes into the computer. Slide the needle in effortlessly while telling the patient she is lucky to have a 14-vial doctor, one who wants to know why. Unknot the tourniquet one-handed, switch full vial for new one when explaining daughter's gifts this year are on layaway. Winter coat, school clothes, one video game, that's it. Apply pressure to stop the bleeding, and when gauze soaks red, assure the patient, yourself, it will stop eventually. And this next one is about somebody that I was on the same route going to work at that time. And I drive on a weekly basis behind a garbage truck, and the one garbage man just always kind of stuck in my mind and was just kind of imagining what his backstory is. It's called Day Job. Hanging on the back of a tire truck, he exhales streams of vapor. Still wearing yesterday's skinny jeans and red Chuck Taylors, the required fluorescent vest pulled over his hoodie. He rubs the night from his eyes, then pulls gloves from back pocket. He plays nights into these mornings at all the local places, floors sticky with beer, tables crowded with college kids spending their minimum wages on dollar drafts and jukebox memories, filled with waitresses carrying long hours of trays, looking for tips big enough to take them away from here someday. He plays his guitar electric and blue until last call, walks the blocks he works in daylight home to a garage apartment to catch 3 hours of sleep. Jumping down, he takes time walking to the curb, swings overstuffed garbage bags into the belly of the truck, pushes a button to crush and compact. He repeats block after block. At the end of the run, he climbs back onto his ride, spits last night's stale taste into the gutter. He tightens his grip when the truck lumbers around a corner, its pipes coughing black smoke, motor whining against the frosty morning. I, several years ago, was a teacher, an 8th grade English teacher, and I taught To Kill a Mockingbird, and just loved teaching it to the students and seeing their reactions. And I wrote this for Band Book Week, one of the years that I was teaching. And it's called Why It's a Sin to Kill a Mockingbird. They say, daughter, that children should be seen, not heard. I say, daughter, speak up. Let them hear your voice rattle the windows of Main Street. They say, daughter, listen to your teachers and their chalk-caked books. I say, daughter, get your own hands dirty. Read a book, newspaper, magazine, no matter your age. They say, daughter, girls wear dresses, not brothers' hand-me-down overalls. I say, daughter, dresses or breeches, pressed or patched, do not make the person. They say, daughter, you are unschooled, unpredictable, like a thunderstorm, a tornado. I say, daughter, you have been more rock than shriveling stream, sturdy oak than willow. They say, daughter, shield the child, no need for her to see the ugly side of town. I say, daughter, open your eyes from courtroom balcony to Radley front porch, to 10th Street on a summer afternoon, to a dark October night. These are the places you will learn why it is a sin to kill a mockingbird. Okay. And then the last one from the collection that I'm going to read is called Housewife Takes Flight, or Chores Are Broken. It's actually about a former coworker of mine, and she told me the story at one point, and I asked her if it was okay if I wrote about it, and she said yes, and I wrote it, but I changed details, specific details. And when she read the poem, she asked me to change some of the details back to make them actual truth. So there's some made up fact in here, but a lot of it is her story. And I just really appreciated that she let me tell it. She's what my mom calls a tough over a pond, a demure pinky tuscadero, a woman who keeps quiet, her head down, no complaining. She knows work, the kind that keeps a family together until the ties are threadbare, until it's time to say enough is enough. But not before she sets the table with her good silver and china, a pattern similar to her own mother's, crystal water goblets, all wedding gifts now 25 years old. In a white blouse, khaki capris, and ballerina flats, she roasts beef, mashes potatoes and julienne's carrots, plates the food like a professional. After dinner, she vacuums under the dining room table, into the living room, around her grandmother's wingback, pushes and pulls to create the perfect V pattern that shows she takes cleaning seriously. She pushes and pulls her way to the front door, turns off the machine and yanks on the cord to release it from the outlet across the room, drags the Hoover upright, another wedding gift, down the porch steps, and heaves it into the back seat of her Chevy wagon. With windows down and sunglasses on, she throws the car into reverse, heads north on South Main Street, her house growing smaller in the rear view, the love of her life, whom she hasn't yet met, another mile closer. Paul Young's What Becomes of the Brokenhearted, her only directions. All right. Now I'm going to read a couple of new ones before my time is over here. And this one, I have a twin sister, and this didn't start out about her, but it became about her and I and our relationship. But it is a found poem. I attended the AWP conference several years ago when it was in Minneapolis, and the Found Poetry Review kind of sponsored some creative writing prompts and exercises. So I walked around the book fair and picked up brochures and flyers from the various book vendors there, and also walked around. There's a Skyway in Minneapolis, and I walked around the Skyway and pulled words and phrases off of billboards and signs there. So this is called Timed Door. These twin cities don't look exactly the same. Like you and your sister, her red hair to your brown. She speaks with her right hand. You always go left. Her scientific logic questions your emotional language. She seeks wide fields, corn stalks swaying. Her husband saves the henhouse from foxes roaming the night. You want stacked vertical living, 1 a.m. conversations in a standing room only bar. Sun rising over steel. Stop there. Choose your wings carefully and tell her to do the same. No need for separate exits. You will fly together to the Mississippi River of your childhood, far south from here, where you splashed each other, ran away, then toward one another, knowing your parallel paths will somehow cross on the Skyway. a labyrinth connecting the past to the present, a sanctuary for you both. You breathe in tandem like these cities, no matter how many miles are between you. You know, she knows, where one ends and the other begins, even as the sky fills with snow. And this is about a meteor shower that happened several years ago. Temple Tuttle takes her time orbiting the sun, slow but fierce, leaves her signature, and when Earth crosses her path, an orchestrated show of light. Just before dawn, you lie on the concrete sidewalk, 5 hours behind the East Coast, a symphony of birds singing the morning awake. You snap pictures of Jupiter, Venus, and Mars, the distance between immeasurable with just the eye. Then Leonid's radiant falls through constellation Leo, and the shower changes everything. I ask when you'll be home. You answer right quick. Just after midnight, I lie down on a cold driveway, dead leaves scratching its surface. Above me, pines and red oaks tiptoe their way to the northern sky. My Scorpio lives by the moon, has a hard time forgetting. Your Aries lives close to the edge of Mars. We will forgive each other for this every day. The comet lumbers along, the meteor shower comforts, Mother Earth spins. Right quick takes on new meaning in space. 33 years to orbit just once. We are experts at waiting. All right, and then just one or two more. This one is a prose poem that I wrote when my niece was in 6th grade. She was playing softball and I went to watch her game, and she just called me tonight to tell me that she was accepted to another college. So this is several years old and I can't believe she's going into college. The rain comes every day for weeks, sometimes in giant bursts, droplets breaking on tree branches. Often in drenching curtains, the wind blows west to east. The water pools muddied in the construction site outside my office. I'm quickly giving up on summer. You're saying you'll never let go. On the eve of the 4th of July, it's dry. We drive over an hour to the middle of nowhere for a softball game. There's a tractor parked outside the Turbotville Great Value and marked spots for buggies. A young couple climbs into one. He's suspendered and bearded. She's white-capped and long-dressed, unwrinkled. They look full of hope. I think there's a poem here. I try to take pictures, but my memory is full. You refrain from a lecture. My niece throws strike after strike after strike in the bottom of the 6th. The stands cheer. The next day we wake to more rain. All right. This will be my last poem. Again, thank you so much, Leopoldo. Thank you for everyone who came, especially my family, and one of my lifelong friends, we've been friends since middle school, is here today too. So thank you so much for everyone for coming. This is so far the one and only poem that I've written about the pandemic. I think I want to write more about it, but I just haven't seemed to be able to. And I wrote it right at the beginning, just as everything was closing down. So about a year ago. It's called These Days. Fear is a heavy coat to wear, day in, day out. Let the fog hover, let the river flow. Let the in-between of conversations be still. Winter never got feet under it, never got full sails up, simply drifted away. Now a spring born of illness. Welcome daffodils and dandelions, anything willing to grow. People will come together, people will fall apart. Like the hotel we lived in back in '82 when we first moved here. Now empty, broken windows, mattresses heaped in the parking lot. The rain spits today, as if it knows its chance is only 50-50. Stop spinning. Let the wind chimes guide you. Thank you. And thank you again.
So I'm going to read a short story rather than a poem, but it'll be very short. I guess before I start reading, I actually have questions for everybody who has joined. I don't have very much time for writing, so I write in the morning before I do my work. And so the pandemic has been really great because I don't have to commute very far to go to work. But There's a lot of information out there about how to write something quickly, like in a structured way. And so I can write things and produce them. And I am trying to find more information about how to revise my work. And I find that the work about revision is kind of unimaginative. It's almost all focused on copy editing and producing your work and making it ready for publishing. And that isn't really the kind of revision process that I'm interested in. I'm interested in a revision process that would essentially reimagine the work. And I can imagine there must be books out there or guides to thinking about this. Some of like one of the only books I can find that is really about this would be there's an interview between Brian Geisen and or a conversation between Brian Geisen and William Burroughs, which talks about something called the cut up method, where you take your text and you slice it up like it's a piece of tape, and you rearrange it with maybe another text, and then you rewrite it. So that's one method of kind of reimagining your work. And then there's maybe the ULUPU, the Oroville Potential Literature. They have different strategies for taking your work and kind of forcing it into an algorithm or a constraint and producing a new work. And Priscilla is here, so I just wanted to talk about her book a little bit too. Can you even see it now? Wow.
If you just hold it straight instead of moving it back and forth, it might focus in.
No. So Priscilla has a book called The Writer's Portable Mentor, and I've been using a checklist that she has in that as what I call a thickening agent. That really, you can go through this checklist that she has in The Writer's Portable Mentor and begin to add detail to your work. But there's nothing in her book, which is great, about this revision process. So if something occurs to you about a book that you've read that's about revision, and about reimagining your work, I'd love to hear it if you want to put it in the chat at any time while I'm reading. So now I'll read my story, which I wrote pretty recently, so it's a brand new story. It's called Little Crosses in the Trees. Someone had hung crosses from the trees in the bird sanctuary where I went for my afternoon walks. I didn't remember the last time I'd been to the forest. It may have been a month or 2 weeks. The crosses marked something dreadful, a death, an accident, something obscure to me, but that meant enough to someone to put up on the trees on the trail. There were 6 or 7 tiny crosses nailed to the fir trees in the forest. Each one had a first name, but no date. They had no other markings. I wondered if it was an installation. Maybe someone made a YouTube video. They reminded me of the crosses that appear on the side of dangerous highways where someone has died. This thought got me thinking about my mother. In her old age, my mother and I had grown so far apart that I often wondered randomly if she was dead. I called my mother on her birthday, even though I hadn't talked to her in the year since her last birthday. I had to do the math to figure out which year it was for her, 74 years. She'd been retired now for 5 years. Before she was retired, she was a woman who was exhausted, but obsessed with work and her upcoming retirement when she would finally begin to do her own work, paint, travel to places like Quito, Tierra del Fuego, Prague, and rebuild friendships that languished during her years of labor. After she retired, she slipped into a profound slumber. She was someone who let months slip by and seemed as comfortable sleeping as watching a movie. She rarely left her house. She had been a regular caller. I wasn't a fan of telephone calls. I was especially not a fan of telephone calls with her because she talked endlessly about work. She was a technical drafter and would discuss in minute detail the schematics she was drafting. After her retirement, she briefly talked about coworkers she kept in touch with, and then nothing. 6 months went by without a phone call. A year went by, and the calls became a birthday ritual. I felt like it was akin to testing if she was still alive. She could die. I wouldn't know. Her mobility decreased over the years, and in her final years of work, she drove a scooter from her car to her desk across the vast parking lot of the defense contractor where she worked. She could use a walker, but I think most of the time she used her scooter. She sold her house, and I encouraged her to find a retirement community while she still had the money. But my brother, who I didn't get along with, was appalled that I wanted to put her into a home at 70 years old or get a caregiver and a cleaning service, I said. But you want to maintain your autonomy, I told her. This was my motive. If she was going to go on her trips and go painting, she needed her own space. Instead, she moved into my brother's house where I wouldn't go. I called her and got her answering machine. If this was even a machine now, it was a service, some software somewhere. I left my message in the cloud. I sent her an email. I waited. A week after her birthday, I called her again. I got an answering machine. I checked her Facebook page, and there were recent birthday wishes from her closer relatives, a few friends from work, a few people. There was no sign of anything recent from her. I didn't want to message one of my aunts who I hadn't spoken to since my grandmother's funeral and ask them if my mother was alive. To them, I might become a harbinger of death. I waited for a month. Christmas came. I mailed my mother a present. The holidays passed. Still no sign from her. Maybe she was dead. I walked in the forest on a drizzling day, and more crosses had been hung from the trees. It wasn't that it was sinister or sad. The forest was warmer and drier inside the trees, and then the walk to the forest. Inside the forest, the base of the trees were dusty. I could hear birds rustling in the underbrush. Some animal made a plaintive tweet or cry a half-mile away towards the swamp. The older crosses were now covered in a slight film from the tree pollen and mold spores that floated in the dim sylvan air. I read the names on the new crosses: Mindy, John, Caleb, and then there was my mother's name, Lana. I walked back to my car. I looked up her address for shipping that she had provided me to deliver her Christmas presents when she moved to my brother's house. It was an hour and 15 minutes away. I called my wife to tell her I was going to check on my mom. Are you going in your brother's house? I don't plan on it. Then what will you do? I don't know. Maybe I'll see her in the window of the house or something. You know what happened last time you talked to your brother. I won't talk to him. I drove to the house that my brother had remodeled in a suburb of Marysville, a working class town between Everett and the Tulalip Casino, the oldest and largest of the tribal casinos in Washington state. I only knew Marysville as a gas stop when driving north to Bellingham or Vancouver, BC. My phone led me off the freeway, and then I drove on a highway, and soon I was in remote foothills. I finally turned off the road and found myself in a partially built subdivision. At the very end sat the house I had only seen through Google Maps. Her car was out front, and that was the only car there. A vent in the house emitted a plume of steam. Behind the house, there was just timberland and the distant Cascade Mountain peaks that were unfamiliar to me this far north. I thought the suburb would have more houses and cars in it, but there were a few houses still under construction in vacant lots. There weren't sidewalks, so there was no place for me to hide. I drove slowly past the house, looking to see if there was some motion or something. Weeds and moss grew under her car. The tires were flat. Forest scum collected on the car hood. A small evergreen tree grew from the roof rack as if her car was a feeder stump. I parked a half-mile away and called her again. Hello? She said. She sounded distant or muffled. It's me, I said. Oh, sorry I missed Christmas, she said. I was sick. We talked for about 20 minutes. She seemed disoriented and confused, but alive. She discussed the TV program she was watching. She liked Poldark, another program set in the 17th and 18th century England. She had many thoughts about Adian Turner from her bedroom in the foothills of the Cascades. Have you been driving? I need to get my car started, she said. It didn't start last time I tried. When was the last time you got out to your car? I go places all the time. You don't need to worry about me. I'm worried. Is my brother there? Yes, she said. Do you want to talk to him? No, please call me, I said. I drove home. I talked to my wife. I didn't know what to do. I decided that I'd keep doing what I was doing, which was nothing. That was probably the best course of action. I did nothing. A few months later, my mother sent another note. I responded, and then we were trading emails every couple of months, and then she went dark again. After 6 months in the height of summer, I drove back to the house in the north. Her car was gone now. The house had been repainted. I went to the spot again and called her. I didn't hear from her. I went back to the house and then walked up to the door and knocked. I could hear someone inside the house and dreaded the appearance of my brother. And then the door opened and it was a 6-foot tall man wearing a fedora. I'm sorry, we don't want any, he said. I'm looking for Miss Travis. Travis? I don't know anyone by that name. I think you have the wrong house. I read the address. This is the place. Maybe she lived here before? Oh, how long have you lived here? 6 months, he said. Do you know what happened to the people who lived here before? The house was empty when I bought it, he said. I left and sat in my car. I could track her or my brother down. I could do that, I guess, if I thought it would change a thing. So that's my story. It's a COVID story, I guess.
One Piece, The Three Little Pigs Redux. We know that we are supposed to emulate the piglet who constructed his home with bricks, but I was always partial to the piglet who worked swiftly to build his shack with sticks, got it quickly done, and took to song. Sticks were enough to resist the wind and gentle rain, and they provided whimsy and ventilation, to say nothing of artistic form. Of course, I grant you, building with straw was just lazy and stupid and, well, looked like shit. But those bricks were way too much, and they took too long and required adherence to the straight and narrow, the measured length, the trued up line, and the carefully angled corner. No doubt they were safer in some other place, but frankly looked like some fortification. No, the building with sticks went faster, followed its own line, flowed around its knots, and inspired songs and stories far into the night. On one such night, while they lay collapsed and sated, each piglet retired to his own house. The whirlwind called Wolf came in, and with a ferocious howl, it carried off the straw in an instant, scattered the wooden branches, but also pushed the brick in on its owner. All three piglets stared benumbed in realization. Only the bricklayer still wore a full suit of clothes, his only consolation, but his eyes were bruised shut. The straw maker was lost and insane. Only the stick builder could still see, and gathering up his sticks to build anew, he began to sing, naked. I would want to say that he taught the others to dance and sing, and that the brick builder taught them both technologo, and that the straw thatcher shared something valuable with the other two. But that is not what happened. What happened was the nearby trees grew tendril roots to reach from beneath the surface of the ground towards their dead cousins, the sticks, and sing a song of lament for thousands of sunrises, asking what was it like to be buried in the air.
Well, during this COVID time this year, we were a community, but we're kind of far apart. So this poem of mine is written in the 1980s. I just dredged it up. It's called Often a Man. Often a man listens to faraway woods. Like a wolf, they pause in snowy shadows for winds that may bring the aroma of bread. Reflects on the glory and shame of the pack, how it hunts and tears flesh from flesh, sips blood from the jugular of a lamb, and how yet when the pack moves stealthily by country church, in the moonlight that falls and glides in the frozen fields to the ailing schoolhouse, the bags unsipping the pencil wisdom, gleam between milking of the cow and blowing out the long candle in childhood bedrooms that fill all the farmhouses that flock together for comfort and company, and in the communal hedges, erect churches where the pastor says in the best way he can. The man often hears blood in his ears and he's in bed alone. He looks up at the ceiling and he knows he should not be smoking. The woman, not his, is meticulous and tender, who at this hour is anointing her face, which is already beautiful, her curls dangling at her temples, the skin smoother than the skin of grapes. In soft whispers, she calls the name of the man she loves, but they have never met. He's a singer who moves across the stages of the world, more famous than Russian poets uh, or political leaders. He croons just three little words and young girls swoon. He lines his guitar case with drugs and contraband goods, sits with the brutal custody of bobbies. In the woman, no longer a young girl, knows everything about a singer. And in the late hour, when snow threatens to fall on farmhouses, she flicks on the bed lamp, reads the magazine of famous people, forgetting altogether the dreary house, the checkout stand of the large variety store where she's a cashier. Penny goes with pennies and $5 bills with $5 bills. All the while, the man who hears blood in his ear dreams about five numbers straight across a pack of old gold cigarettes and is wondering about the feasibility of a hamburger to Jack in the drive-in, Jack in the Box at this hour. A wolf too may listen to a man when the man is happy and is strumming a guitar by the water of six rivers. The wolf too may sing as bees can after he steals the oil sanctuary lambs and forget all about childhood's shame. He wanders over sweet grasses and white barley, his nostrils moist and filled with the aroma of bread that rises from chimneys, farmhouses, and little villages, out of which little boys and girls walk into hospitals, company-owned gift shops, or go as high as the lectern of a state-run university, while the man with the blood throbbing his ear, the woman reading a magazine in bed, have never met, except unknown to each. He hands her $1 for a lottery ticket, and she's very happy at that precise moment because over the music system of the store, they're playing a song of the singer she loves. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Okay, so since, I'll just read one, since Dawn is a twin, so I'm a twin. So this is, I think this is like the only poem I've ever written about being twins, but here it is. Twins. The twins follow a bluebird into green trees. Nobody cares where. They find no cakes under pine cones, no crumbs to show the way. They wander, but they are not lost. Do they imagine they can live on twigs and roots? No witch appears, nor cottage. Night falls, the moon yellow as pigtails. The twins play house among hickory and oak. Each one is for the other home.
So this was, I'm going to read Junkies Outside the Window. A picture window. We who have keys to the inside have homes, summer houses, condos with 2 bathrooms, and private linear blinds to close. We look out on a courtyard inside a fence, greenery in a nook, secluded from the street, a place to lie down with a blanket, to take care of small needs on a weekend when the professional building lies fallow. Perfect hideaway from those who belong. Our writing group enters, we stare through glass, they stare back. A needle in his hand, suspended against his thigh, where he was privately searching for a vein. In slow motion, he leans forward, moves her bag, watching us. We insiders stock still, our eyes shift to and from his bare leg to their frozen eyes, caught. We distract, look at the chairs we would reorganize. But the scene is invasive, them to us to them. We exit with a trail of words to escape what we've seen. We wonder what to do next. There are other rooms we can use. The woman folds her blanket, we regroup. Each intruder knows who we are, how we see each other. We decline calling the police, let them walk away holding their dignity. Besides, by the time the police came, it would be a report, taking our precious minutes. The key holder will tell the landlord on Monday.
Okay. All right, so I normally just read one poem, but I'm going to read two. I'm originally from upstate New York. The night Elvis died, somewhere in the Adirondacks. Before I knew who Elvis was, my older sister and I sat shivering, huddled shoulder to shoulder, our bodies pressed close to the baseboard heater above the dingy motel rug. It's not supposed to snow in August, my dad said. We watched him pace and pack his pipe, wearing only shirts and flip-flops. My sister stood up, opened the curtains, and lifted me up to see what was happening. Somewhere in the Adirondacks, giant flakes were falling like a silent picture show before there was color. Actually, Elvis, I looked it up that Elvis died in August. Okay, fact. Okay, my next poem, well, anyway, it's called Darning. Cleaning out my mother's dresser, I find a pair of brown wool socks. She had stitched the toes, zigzagged, loops protruding, and thread sticking out like the little hairs that wouldn't fit into the ponytail my mother tried to tie. I picture her rummaging through her sewing kit, searching for a brown spool. Spinning on the kitchen stool, I watch her stiffen the limp thread with spit, pinch it with nimble fingers, squinting as if she were painting a wheat field or placid lake. She holds her brush steady, level to a horizon of trees. The red socks they give my mother in the hospital are dotted with little white hearts and treaded sole paw prints. We shuffle past the nursing station, the IV pole drags behind us. Gripping my arm, she waves, smiling at the nurse she just yelled at in the bathroom. She brushes silver hair from her tired face and squeezes my hand. We move from room to room as if we were floating down the hall, past the nursing station, lunch carts, breathing machines, past the beeping noises of codes. A sudden breeze lifts her indigo blue gown, and we float higher and higher, much further than the moon. Thank you.
Okay, I'm back to my normal place. So I'm going to read two poems. The first one is from my book, The Sand Dune Teacher. The shell of a walnut looks like a brain. It's not a punishment, Father says, as we pull up to Grandma's house. He stares ahead, hands on the wheel, idling in the drive. I see Grandma standing out front. The door has been painted dark green since my last visit. It makes the leaves on her skirt disappear. She's waiting for me, hands folded as if in prayer. She must have missed church this morning. Grandma doesn't smile ever. Her eyes look beyond the car at the walnut tree. Last month, she promised we'll pickle walnuts together. When they ripen, if I've been good. Go on then, Father says, trot along. I'll see you next Sunday. He touches my shoulder, coughs. As I climb from the car, Grandma turns, goes into the house. I walk to the dark green door, fix my smile to my face. Before I follow her in, before I turn and wave, Father drives away. And this is a new poem a list poem that I've just written a couple of days ago, which is an ABC Darius, which takes the first, each line starts with the first letter of the alphabet in the right order. The death menu. Abandonment. Burned while using cooking oil while someone fans the flames. Crushed by a toppling stack of hoarded newspapers. Drowning in a bath, as effective as drinking too much water, though quicker. Falling down a chimney, more deathly than falling out of bed. Getting inside a freezer when playing hide and seek and not being found. Intentional self-harm, aka suicide. Justifiable homicide. Kicked more than once by a horse or bitten once by a monkey. Loss of trust caused by heartbreak, as catastrophic as a mystical apocalypse. Neglect, or being eaten by a drove of pigs. Would you choose the quirky or the sad option? Riding your Segway off a cliff, tried and tested, or stepping backwards off a cliff, gives a view of the sky during descent. Taking a selfie with a loaded handgun, a favorite of teenagers. Unknowingly downing a bottle of Viagra for a 2-day sex marathon, a gender-specific choice. Walking through a glass door, death by 1,000 cuts. Extreme consumption of carrot juice causing overdose. You torpedo your own ship, or to really go out with a bang, get zapped by a live microphone on stage with your favorite band. Thank you.
This is called Baudelaire's Absinthe, and absinthe was like the favorite beverage of 19th century poets. And I'm going to mention another poet, Guillaume Apollinaire, in it, and also the painter René Magritte. I wake from a night of Baudelaire's absinthe vision, leaving bloodshot rhymes in my head, my thoughts sluggish as a slow seine. I startle to the wrens chorusing the brevity of our days from the branches of blighted Paris trees. Now I look back 1,000 years, or excuse me, now I look back 100 years and see Apollinaire roaming a London stopped by fog, mourning through a bafflement of air. He is searching for a young woman out of his acquaintance with icy blue Scarborough eyes who had fled his heated advances. Then a Brussels seance convenes in Magritte's parlor, and his mother is heard speaking from a river. The next day on the telephone, he talks about women floating incorporeal above shores along the Atlantic Ocean. Meanwhile, Baudelaire revises Les Fleurs du Mal in his room at the Hotel Lausanne in a haze of alcohol. He works near a broken window that admits March wind and random drafts of blurry conversations.